Oi, pessoas do YouTube, vão me tornar aquilo que eu sempre joguei. Ai, meu Deus. Quem puder, se inscreve aí no canal, ativa o sininho, dá o like e deixa um comentário no vídeo pra gente aumentar os nossos números no YouTube, por favor. Além disso, nós temos cupons. Cupons na Dragon Skin, Carola Geek, tudo junto, 10% de desconto em qualquer playmat. E cupom na Playground. Na Playground é Carola 5, 5% de desconto em qualquer compra do site. Usa os nossos cupomzinhos, vai estar aí embaixo na descrição os links dos sites e também o cupomzinho, beleza? A história dela. Tocando um piano muito bonito. Tá, eu não lembro mais sobre o que é o jogo. Faz muito tempo que eu baixei ele. Então espera um pouquinho que eu vou lembrar sobre o que é o jogo, pessoas. Calma aí. Faz muito tempo que eu baixei ele, aí a pessoa já não lembra mais, entendeu? Porque eu sou dessas. Ela é entrevistada 7 vezes pela polícia e nós encontramos os vídeos dela, tá? Tá. Houve um crime e ela foi entrevistada pela polícia. É isso. O marido dela tá desaparecido. E a gente tem que descobrir o que aconteceu com ele vendo os vídeos dela. É isso. Tá, foi aqui que a gente parou.
Can you arrest someone who doesn't exist?
Tá. Personalidade. Ontem me falaram pra testar personalidade. Vamos lá. Ai. Tem que ser em inglês, Carolina. Quem? Calma aí que eu perdi a conversa de vocês. Calma aí. Tá, não tem nada de psicologia. Vocês não estão falando do Marquinho, não, né? Tá, o Marco Velho, não é o Marquinho. Tá. Porque se for o Marquinho, não recomendo. Péssima pessoa. Personalidade. Não. Ontem eu fiz algumas pesquisas, deixa eu ver. Falaram. Já foi tudo. O ruim é que eu só consigo ver 5. Eu queria conseguir ver mais.
The whole thing was wrong.
Não, não é não.
The bags,
Ele é interessante. Tem final, sim.
I think they were from our kitchen. You could probably check that.
Vai lá, Sean. Até mais tarde.
I'm going to the cellar. It's just a place we put things we don't need. Dad used to grow mushrooms there.
Bom trabalho pra você, Sean.
The bags were taped up.
Tá, eu não vi o começo do vídeo. Vamos voltar.
The whole thing was wrong. The bags,
Tá, eu vou procurar bags.
I think they were from our kitchen. You could probably check that. We never go into the cellar. It's just a place we put things we don't need.
Cellar. Também tem que procurar.
Dad used to grow mushrooms there. The bags were taped up. I think it was parcel tape, but I think it was ours.
Tá, então eu tenho que procurar parcel. Bags, parcel. Bags. Cellar. A gente tem que tentar liberar tudo isso daqui, ó. Estamos nem na metade. É isso. Entendeu?
No, they were shut. Most of the windows were really hard to open anyway. They're stifling in summer. They were painted over by my dad. Could have left a door open accidentally. Or there's a cat flap in the back door.
Ups, desculpa. Ah, vai copar o gato agora.
They said it was food poisoning. There was
Ah, tá.
something
Então a família
in
dela
the food
morreu
they
de food
ate. My
poisoning.
dad liked to pick mushrooms, grow them too. They said it was the mushrooms. It was hard to believe. Death caps. They have a skirt around the cap. My dad taught me that. But, I mean, the police had no reason to think it was suspicious. They lived alone. And no one had any reason to hurt them.
Ela tinha, né? Ela pode ter matado os pais dela também. Hurt.
Suicide? No. I mean, he would never do anything like that. He is not the kind of person to do anything like that. I mean, to hurt himself? No.
Ok.
I mean, I don't know. Something must have happened to him on his way home. He could be hurt. I mean, why hasn't he phoned? I don't know.
Será que ela matou
Hurt
os pais
someone?
dela também?
Yes. But everyone thinks that from time to time, right? You just want to lash out.
Back.
When will the police let me back in the house? They let me take a bag of clothes with me, but
Tá, aqui eles já tinham descoberto o corpo do marido dela, que foi morto com um espelho no pescoço. Espelho que ele mesmo fez pra ela, diga-se de passagem.
okay. I parked up in the street. It was busy, so I had to park down the end of the road. Walked up, knocked on the door, no answer. I took my keys out of my bag and unlocked the door. The main lock was unlocked. You can tell because the key doesn't turn when you try to turn it to the left. I walked in. Simon's coat wasn't on the peg. I couldn't see his shoes in the shoe rack. I shouted out. I walked straight into the kitchen because he usually sits in there to have a cup of tea and read his paper. But he wasn't there. I touched the kettle. It was cold. I looked quickly in the living room. Nothing. So I walked upstairs to the bedroom and he wasn't there. I didn't search for him because it was pretty clear he wasn't there. I had a shower. The phone rang whilst I was in the shower. I didn't answer it. I think it was Eric. Then I was just exhausted. So I lay down on the bed and I fell asleep, though I didn't mean to. I woke up a couple of hours later and I was surprised to see no one in the bed next to me. And then I remembered where I was and what had happened. That's when Eric called again. This time I spoke to him. Then I called Doug and Eleanor. And then I decided to come and see you. That enough?
Ah, eu perdi o finalzinho, volta.
I didn't answer. Pretty clear, he wasn't there. I looked quickly in the living room, nothing. So I walked upstairs to the bedroom and he wasn't there. I didn't search for him because it was pretty clear he wasn't there. I had a shower. The phone rang whilst I was in the shower. I didn't answer it. I think it was Eric. Then I was just exhausted. So I lay down on the bed and I fell asleep, though I didn't mean to. I woke up a couple of hours later and I was surprised to see no one in the bed next to me. And then I remembered where I was and what had happened. That's when Eric called again. This time I spoke to him. Then I called Doug and Eleanor. And then I decided to come and see you.
Doug e Eleanor são os pais dele.
Okay.
Essa é a outra personalidade. Tem uma personalidade que chama Hannah e
It was
outra que
busy,
chama
so I
Eve.
parked down the end of the road. I walked up to the house. I knocked on the door. No answer.
É a mesma
I took my
resposta.
keys out of my bag, unlocked the door. The main lock was unlocked. I could tell because the key wouldn't turn when I tried to turn it to the left. I walked in. Simon's coat wasn't on the peg. I couldn't see his shoes on the shoe rack. I shouted out for him. I walked straight into the kitchen. He usually sits in there to have a cup of tea and read his paper.
Nossa, bem
He
decoradinho,
wasn't
hein?
there. I touched the kettle. It was cold. I looked quickly into the living room. Nothing. I walked upstairs to the bedroom. He wasn't there. I didn't search for him because it was pretty clear he wasn't there. Then I had a shower. Whilst I was in the shower, the phone rang. I think it was Eric, his boss. I didn't answer it. Then I came out and I was just exhausted. So I lay down on the bed and I fell asleep, but I didn't mean to. I woke up a couple of hours later and I was surprised to see no one in the bed next to me. And then I remembered where I was and what had happened.
Gente, tá muito igual.
That's when Eric called again. I spoke to him. Then I called Simon's parents. And then I decided to come and see you. That enough?
Gente, ela deu a mesma resposta 2 vezes. Igualzinha. Igualzinha. Gente. No. What the fuck? Oh. É a primeira vez que isso acontece, tá? Nope. Bom, como que eu faço essa jossa que tá me atrapalhando aqui? Eu acho que o cara foi encontrar no celular.
Considering. I got back into the house today, and that was weird, knowing your people have been there through my things. It's like I've been burgled. And worse, obviously. I don't know. I haven't lived in the cellar yet. They sent a cleaner in. As good as new, he said. But they had to throw some stuff out.
Bom dia, Fê.
Couldn't get the blood out. And I'm still waiting to hear from the coroner so we can get a date set for the funeral. It's going to be a cremation.
Ela vai cremar o corpo do cara? Tá, ele foi encontrado no cellar. Cellar é o que mesmo? É tipo porão, no porão. Então encontraram ele no porão, envolvido nos plásticos da casa. Essa é a Ivy. Essa daqui é a Hannah, essa daqui é a Ivy.
It happened very quickly. We hardly had to talk to each other. We agreed almost silently. The baby was what mattered. We'd help each other. We cleaned up. We bagged up the broken mirror, her clothes. They're gone. We took him down to the cellar. We knew we had an alibi, and we wanted the body to be found later. We wanted to have suspicion on us, so we could then disprove it, rather than have it linger. Better to keep the body in the house than risk being seen with it. The watch, that was my touch, to make sure the alibi stuck.
Tá. Beleza. Mano, elas não podem ser gêmeas, é isso. E eu acho que elas mataram os pais delas. Mushroom. Agora eu não lembro se é com R ou se é só com cogumelo. Deixa eu procurar cogumelo. Aparentemente os pais dela morreram envenenados. Faltou um outro.
I was living in the attic. It was a very hard time. I was depressed, was still pretty sick of the STD.
Ela
And
vivia
I
no
came
ático.
down one morning. They were dead. They were in bed and Both had been sick. They'd thrown up a lot. And I'd slept through it. The police said it was the mushrooms they ate. Dad was a mushroom expert. He used to take us picking with him and he taught us how to recognise them.
Menos mal, Fernanda.
There's no way he would have picked dead caps. He was a mushroom expert. He used to take us picking with him and he taught us how to recognise them. There's no way he would have picked dead caps.
Ela tem mania de se beliscar, né? Ficar fazendo assim, ó.
But the police believe that's what happened. They never even looked in the attic.
Doll House. Quase certeza absoluta, velho. Quase certeza absoluta, assim. Só quero ter certeza, assim.
Sure. Yes, of course, if that would help. Will you phone the house to let me know when you want to come round? Then I can make sure that I'm there.
Tá, eles queriam investigar a casa. Aqui é bem no começo, né?
He has a wallet, a huge, silly thing. Leather. Real leather, I think. He packs it full
Eu
of
acho que não são
stuff.
gêmeas.
Business cards, receipts, lottery tickets. He always carries it in his back pocket. I think that's why he's got a bad back.
É muito absurda a história da menina ter ficado escondida no
I haven't seen it, so he must have it on him.
porão.
He always takes it out of his back pocket.
Ai, no sótão. É muito absurdo.
When he comes in, if he's in the house.
É muito absurdo. É muito absurdo ela ter ficado boa parte da vida escondida no sótão. É absurdo. Obrigado, Pri. É muito absurdo.
I wasn't in the house.
É isso?
I wasn't in the house all of Friday night. After the argument, after Simon left, I left too.
Ela não tinha falado que ele tinha saído. Ela olha
I
pro
was
lado pra lembrar as
upset and I
coisas.
wanted to get away. So I took the car.
Ela dirigiu até... Mano, tem uma parte, Fernando, que ela dá uma resposta igualzinha. 2 vezes, igualzinha. Então, ela saía. Mas, mano, tá muito mal contada essa história. Eu acho que o sótão é, na verdade, a cabeça da outra. Porque quando a outra casa, elas meio que se separam. Ela fica escondida. Entendeu? É muito estranho, é muito estranho. É muito estranho. Pare. Não. Essa história tá muito mal contada. Watch. Não, ela não explicou. Parece muito metafórico, velho. Muito metafórico. Eu vou procurar Doll House.
I guess you could call it that, but we were both happy to get married. It was a beautiful wedding. We had our first dance to come back and stay.
Se ela...
I'm not sure if that's a good wedding song, but I loved it. I chose it. I mean, it was genuinely our first dance. We'd never danced together before. It was probably awful to watch, but I enjoyed it. It felt like it was just me and Simon for that moment. Just the two of us.
Vamos lá. É igual a história da praia. Sabe a história da praia? A história de afogar a irmã. Pra mim é metafórico também, sabe? Tá, só tem isso. Deixa eu ver como que a gente tá aqui. Oh, caramba. Tá, falta muita coisa pra recuperar ainda. Doll. É assim, né? Doll House. É assim? Tá. Tem mais uma, hein?
The legal stuff was completed very quickly. Hannah moved back in with Simon. Eric gave Simon the week off to help with the move. He decorated. modernised wallpaper curtains. Hannah insists the attic be left as it was, dollhouse and all. Simon never went up there.
Papers. Papers. Papers, please.
Florence was a warm, kind person.
Florence.
But she was broken, I guess. When I found her diary, I also found a biscuit tin with other stuff in it. Older papers, letters, that kind of thing. Her story wasn't there. I never really spoke to her about it. I was far too young to really understand. I guess I just put it together later, once I was older. She had loved children, planned to have a large family, but her husband died in the war. And that was back when you married for life. She never felt like she could marry again. Isn't that strange? She was a widow from her 20s.
Nossa, viúva aos 20 anos.
But, I mean, I guess it was different then. You know, you married for life and she felt she could never marry again. I guess it was harder, a war widow. One of the dead. I don't know, maybe there was more to it than that. I don't really know. We were obsessed with fairy tales.
Fairy tales.
Not just the pretty, pretty ones, but the traditional ones. They were dark and real, bizarre and violent. Felt like life. We had this huge old book that I think Mum must have bought from a library sale. The illustrations had thin tracing paper over them to protect them. They were in colour.
Nossa, que chique.
Shiny plates. At the front of the book was an index of illustrations. We read that more than the actual stories. We'd read aloud the captions and flip between the pictures. There was something intimate about peeling back the tracing paper, undressing the pictures. Rapunzel's hair is cut.
Rapunzel.
The eagle plucks out his heart. The princess pricks her finger.
Princess. Vamos lá. Eu acho que é uma só. Daqui a pouco eu vou errar, talvez. Fairy Tales. Escrevi errado e não vai achar mesmo. Tales só. Ok.
Sorry. The picture, the way it's drawn, just reminded me of the books we used to read as children. I read those fairy tales over and over, and they were so real to me. Rapunzel was my favourite. My brain's just full of it. How many of these in colour?
Tava super preocupado com o esposo, né? Notas.
And the Glaziers. I worked there some weekends, and Simon had a part-time job there too. That was Eric's generosity. He was always good at helping out other people's children. Simon was quiet, more thoughtful than the other boys. Even then, he had a sense of craftsmanship. Wasn't always rushing stuff. Boys that age are just running around like headless chickens most of the time. Yeah. Plus, he had that look. He looked like a fairy tale prince from
Gente, ela realmente é obcecada com isso. Pelo amor de Deus. Eu vou procurar depois tatu. Ela tem uma tatuagem no braço. Será que a outra tem uma tatuagem igual? Porque não dá pra ver porque a outra tá usando blusa, né?
Simon never cheated on me. He was devoted to me, and I was devoted to him. Nothing in life is easy. We were good to each other. Life isn't a fairy tale. You do what you can.
Gente, ela é muito fixada nisso.
Fairy tales. Stories about lost princesses, evil witches, magical mirrors and lost children.
Mirrors. Lost
So you
children.
see, even before I knew the truth, I'd found it in those stories.
True. Qual verdade? Qual verdade? Agora eu tô interessada.
It was just me and her. It was the name they were going to call their first child. They talked about it and were going to try when he came back. Florence's family had a history of firstborn girls, so they were convinced it was going to be a girl. It's hard to know if this is all true. These are stories I remember, that I read when I was a child. Maybe I misread, maybe I misunderstood. Sometimes it's hard to remember what happened last week. It's like I told you before, I drove. I took the car and drove. I don't have my own car, but I have a spare set of keys. I just drove north. I wanted to think, put some space between me
É a mesma
and
coisa. É a mesma coisa que
Everything
a
I told
irmã
you
dela
before
fez.
is true. I stopped at Glasgow. I was tired, exhausted. I pulled out
Gente, é a mesma
and I hit a
pessoa.
car. My car was okay, but I was worried about the baby, so I went to A&E to get the okay. Everything was fine. Slept in the car. When I woke, I tried to call Hannah from a payphone. She wasn't answering. And then I decided to drive back. I had decided that she was more important to me than Simon.
Gente, é a mesma história. É a mesma história. Bom dia, Toninho, meu maravilhoso. Bom dia, Toninha. Bom dia, Toninhos. Como você tá, Toninho?
No, he doesn't have any tattoos. He has a scar down here near his stomach,
Tá bem?
past his hip. Cut himself with some glass. That was before, a long time ago. He looks just like the photo. He's not got his glasses on here though. He takes them off for the camera.
Eu acho que não, porque já
Ele
pintou
listen
carinha
to
pra
see
mim. Eu acho que eu já vi
properly,
muita coisa.
He has to read.
Só que eu tô
newspaper,
curiosa.
A menu in a restaurant.
Eu tô
Not so
curiosa,
much
por isso que eu
watching
continuo
TV.
assistindo. Eu sou curiosa. Eu quero saber o máximo de informação possível, entendeu? Mas eu já posso falar com o cara, que é o meu chefe, talvez.
I got it to express my individuality.
Minha
It's
individualidade,
an
por
apple and
quê?
a snake.
A apple and a snake. Quem é a maçã e quem é... E eu quero ganhar conquistinhas aqui, entendeu? Pra eu vender depois as conquistinhas.
He saw me singing one of my shows. Pure chance. Not sure I remember what he was even doing there. Afterwards, I had a drink at the bar and he came over and we got
Tá,
talking.
isso é ela com o Simon, hein?
I knew who he was. Obviously I knew who he was. But he didn't know who I was. He was fascinated by the likeness.
Deixa eu colocar o Riders pra rodar, velho.
He guessed my name from my tattoo. Told me it was a palindrome, like that would impress me. I enjoyed talking to him. It was amazing to be able to sit and interact and talk to him after all this time. He didn't tell me he was married. I'm not sure what he was thinking. He later told me it was like he was dreaming. A waking dream.
Poison, que foi do que os pais dela morreram. Eu acho que ela matou os pais dela, velho.
At the time they said it was poison, food poisoning. I mean, I felt so guilty. If I'd still been at home, maybe I could have done something. I don't know.